everyone, and welcome back to The Victim's Voice. I'm your host, Lorelei. Today, we will cover the third and final part in the series on the murder of Lori Page. In last week's episode, we went over the interview that Andrew had on April 20th, 2023, including him being questioned about a call to Priceline and a trip to JAX. We talked about his house being searched and his car being searched and seized, and the snide comments that he made about it. We talked about everything that was found in his house and car, including Lori's blood on the carpet and door jamb of the car. We ended last week talking about a tumultuous and abusive relationship that Andrew was involved in with another woman before his relationship started with Simone. This woman described Andrew's physical and mental abuse during their relationship, most of which happened in front of her children. During his interview on April 20th, Andrew had told detectives that it was Tim Brown that he had given a ride to JAX. But according to phone data, the only Tim that detectives could find that was tied to Andrew was a man named Tim Costume. And there was also that phone call to Priceline that was made by Andrew on June 2nd of 2023, the day before Lori disappeared, that Andrew says he doesn't remember making. So, on March 7th, detectives sent a subpoena to Priceline regarding information for Tim Costume and Andrew Wiley. And on March 14th, they got the results of that subpoena. It showed no activity at all for Tim Costume. However, what it did show had detectives shocked. Andrew had bought a ticket for himself at 3:30 p.m. on June 2nd of 2023 for a flight from Jacksonville, Florida to San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was a one-way ticket. He didn't have plans on returning to Florida, at least not anytime soon. The flight was to leave at 1:21 p.m. on June 3rd, the day he reported Lori missing, and arrive in Puerto Rico at 10:32 that night. What the actual fuck is going on? Why was Andrew buying a one-way ticket to Puerto Rico when he has a 12-year-old daughter that lives with him and that he's responsible for? He bought the ticket the day before she went missing, if that's when she went missing. Detectives talked to Andrew and Lori's friends and relatives, and not one person had heard about a trip to Puerto Rico, and neither had the bosses at the correctional facility where Andrew worked. He hadn't asked for any vacation days or days off, period. And why didn't he mention this to detectives when they asked him about the phone call to Priceline and the trip to the airport? So he just happened to give, quote unquote, Tim Brown a ride to the airport, and while he was there, decided to buy a one-way ticket out of the country, and then forgot all about it. There's no way he forgot this huge detail during his interview. What was he planning on running from or running to? And is this connected to the fact that Lori disappeared the very next day? That wasn't all they found, though. They also discovered that on June 7th, just 5 days after buying the ticket, Andrew requested a refund. However, that refund was denied. The FBI also confirmed that Andrew obtained a passport in August of 2023. This is 2 months after he bought the ticket to Puerto Rico and didn't use it. So that was strange. Is that why he didn't go in June? Because he didn't have a passport yet? So, based on the fact that Andrew was a single parent, it was very out of character and suspicious that he would drive to JAX right after scheduling a one-way ticket out of the country. He also lied about the trip's intentions to the police as well. It was also confirmed that Andrew and Lori had no travel plans at that time, and he had not asked anyone to watch Lori for him while he went out of town. Based on this information, along with the fact that Andrew had tried to clear information off of the electronics, namely the cell phones, that detectives were completely convinced that Andrew Wiley was somehow involved in Lori's disappearance. On March 13th of 2024, Andrew called the TPD. He wanted to get information on how the case was progressing and if they had any information on where his daughter could be, because he was really worried. And that last sentence was a lie. The actual reason for the call was that Andrew wanted to, in his words, check on his baby. You know, his car. Unfortunately for Andrew, they informed him that he wouldn't be getting his baby back anytime soon. Andrew didn't want to accept that answer, so on March 22nd of 2024, he had Antoine contact the Tallahassee Police Department and ask about getting his car back. They told him the same thing that they told Andrew. Not sure why he thought his brother would get a different answer. He was not getting his car back anytime soon because it was considered evidence. On what planet do either one of these guys think that they would just hand the car back over to him after finding Lori's blood inside? While they had Antoine on the phone, though, they talked to him about Andrew's resistance to cooperate in the investigation, especially in providing them with his electronics. Antoine made excuses for Andrew and claimed that he thought Andrew was just embarrassed about things that they would find on the devices, rather than trying to conceal criminal activity. Antoine was asked to elaborate on what he meant, but he wouldn't say anything else. This led detectives to believe that Antoine might have had information about Andrew's involvement in Lori's disappearance, and that maybe Andrew had photos on his phone that could connect him to some illegal activity. At this point, it had been close to 10 months since Lori had last been seen. Even though she was reported missing on June 3rd, she was last seen and known to be alive on May 25th of 2023, when Miranda came over and recorded their interaction. Because there had been no signs of life since that day, detectives now believed, unfortunately, that Lori was deceased. Detectives contacted Brooklyn to initiate her help. They wanted her to have a controlled phone call with Andrew, which meant it would be made under the supervision of law enforcement, with the goal of obtaining incriminating information. Brooklyn agreed to do this. Even though no information pertaining to the case was learned during the phone call, some of the topics stood out to detectives while the two spoke. For one thing, Lori's birthday was coming up, and Brooklyn asked Andrew if they could do something in honor of her, like light a candle in Lori's new bedroom at his house. Mind you, when detectives went into Andrew's new home to search, they saw the room that was supposed to be Lori's, if and when she came home. It was not a room set up for a 12-year-old girl. There was no bed, none of Lori's things. It was full of Andrew's junk. It looked like a room that he was using for storage. When Brooklyn brought up lighting the candle, he ignored her and then changed the subject, which he also did whenever Brooklyn asked if he got Lori a birthday present. Brooklyn then brought up two photos that the police had shown her prior to the call with Andrew. She said that they were not photos of Lori, which the detectives confirmed. However, they had been shown to Andrew two different times, and both times he said that they were Lori. Why would he do that? I mean, he obviously could recognize his own daughter. Was he trying to mislead investigators or cause confusion in the case? Brooklyn also asked Andrew what he was doing to help the investigation of Lori's disappearance. Andrew said that he didn't like social media and that he was only talking about her disappearance with family and the detectives. This was actually not true because he wasn't talking to the police and rarely, if at all, reached out to them in the investigation. The only thing he reached out to the investigators about was his stupid vehicle, not about his missing daughter. His family also said that he didn't speak to them about Lori very often. He told Brooklyn that he had been searching for Lori on the internet, but he couldn't say how he was doing that. Of course, he did say that he was looking online to see what people were saying about him on the internet. Brooklyn asked him why the police would think he was a suspect or lying to them. Andrew said it was only because he was the last person to see Lori. Brooklyn brought up the phones that the detective wanted to see, and he once again changed the subject. Brooklyn asked Andrew what he thought should happen to someone if they had hurt or done something to Lori. Andrew kind of danced around the question and never could provide an answer. This upset Brooklyn, and she told Andrew that she would hurt the person who was responsible for harming her granddaughter, which is a normal response for a parent or any other family member to have. Andrew told Brooklyn that he wouldn't make statements like that on the phone just in case the police were listening. Andrew is worried more about self preservation than he's worried about his own daughter. The overall tone of the call made it seem that Andrew didn't show much emotion or really care at all about Lori being gone, and it seemed like he didn't plan on her being located. The call upset Brooklyn very much. She knew how she felt about Lori's disappearance, and she wanted to hurt anyone that had done something to Lori. She was shocked by Andrew's nonchalant attitude and how he seemed to only care about himself and how he looked in all of it. Detectives had to calm Brooklyn down after the call. The detectives then obtained a subpoena for the Wells Fargo account used to purchase the one-way ticket to Puerto Rico, and what they found was shocking. First, there was a $30 purchase to Patient First, which is a healthcare provider offering both urgent and primary care services. They focus mostly on people that just walk in with no appointments. That was authorized on May 31st. On June 1st, a purchase was authorized at a Publix pharmacy for a prescription that was filled. The medication was My Way 1.5 milligram tablet. A search for this medication was done, and it was found to be a pill that was used to reduce the chance of pregnancy after unprotected sex, often known as the Plan B pill. It's to be taken within 72 hours after having unprotected sex. We know that Simone, who was Andrew's girlfriend at the time, was in the military and not around. So the medication definitely wasn't for her. So who else could it have been for? Medical records for Lori and Andrew at Patients First were obtained with a search warrant, but because of privacy laws, we don't know what they say. Then, on April 19th of 2024, a search warrant was provided to Planned Parenthood for Lori's medical information. They had reason to believe that Lori may have been seen there, but on April 29th of 2024, the results came back that there were no records of Lori being seen at the Planned Parenthood. Authorities checked Andrew's account for purchases that were made around the time that Lori disappeared. And on May 30th of 2023, it seemed that Andrew had a sudden urge to redecorate his bathroom. He bought a new bathroom rug set and a new wastebasket. Next, one of the old iPhones that was seized from Andrew's apartment on February 28th, one of the devices that Andrew didn't want to turn over, was accessed for data extraction, and that's when a bombshell went off in this case. On June 1st of 2023, at 12:01 p.m., searches were conducted on this phone for different areas in Alabama and Georgia, and for driving directions from Tallahassee, Florida. The searched areas included bodies of water in the southeast region of Alabama and southwest regions of Georgia, just past the Florida state line. On June 1st, just a few minutes later at 12:17 p.m., was the searches for bad neighborhoods in Tallahassee, Florida, and Apalachicola National Forest dead body. At 12:23 p.m., a very telling search was made. The question of, where do police look to find missing kids, was asked. During the search, the device viewed a Quora page on which a user asked the question, why would police stop looking for a missing child, saying the delay of the search is based on where they are in the investigation? Wouldn't they still need to find the child? On June 2nd of 2023, the day before Andrew reported Lori missing, it seemed that he took quite the road trip, leaving his house at 4:34 a.m. By 6:28 a.m., he had traveled 1.5 miles north of the Florida-Georgia line and headed into Georgia. He then turned on Mitchell Road. Both sides of this road were rural and wooded. On the right side of the road was a large plantation which was being used for recreational quail hunting. Andrew's phone traveled for approximately 1.85 miles on Mitchell Road, then turned around and proceeded back toward Boston Highway. At 6:53 a.m., Andrew's phone stopped providing location data, but logged a location at 7:01 a.m., which showed the device was in a field in the southeast side of the road at about 800 feet from the roadway. At 7:17 a.m., Andrew's phone proceeded south on Boston Highway, heading back into Florida. This was all happening just a few hours before he reported Lori missing. So in April of this year, detectives and search teams headed to the areas of Mitchell Pond Road and Boston Highway and extensively searched using cadaver dogs by members of the Thomas County Sheriff's Office and the Tallahassee detectives. There were also private searches done on private properties with the owner's consent. Then the thing that everyone was horrified would happen happened. On April 5th, 2025, the remains of a human teenage female were discovered in the very area of thick brush within 30 meters of where Andrew's phone had placed him on June 2nd, back in 2023. This area had actually been searched multiple times in 2024. However, nothing was found until a prescribed burn took place that cleared some of the thick brush. The remains were submitted to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for DNA comparison, and on April 11th, 2025, everyone's worst fears were confirmed. The remains were, in fact, those of Lori Annalise Paige. Authorities immediately obtained a warrant for Andrew's arrest, stating that they believed that sometime on June 1st of 2023, he killed Lori and then dumped her body in the wooded areas of Thomas County, Georgia. Lori had bled in Andrew's car, which he used to travel to Thomas County to dispose of her remains. They also believed that Andrew had not only been physically abusing Lori, but had also been sexually abusing her due to the purchases made before her disappearance, namely the morning after pill. They also believed that he had bought a ticket to Puerto Rico in an attempt to flee the country after killing and disposing of Lori, but for some reason, he had changed his mind. The same day that the results came back as being the remains of Lori, 36-year-old Andrew Wiley was arrested. During a press conference, the Tallahassee Police Department chief of police released this statement. I told you 2 years ago we would never give up. I told you 2 years ago we would find Lori and we would bring her home. I told you 2 years ago that we would find who did this and we would arrest them and bring them to justice. And today I stand before you to tell you that we have done just that. Lori deserved a safe home and a full life. While today's arrest will never bring her back, it does bring us one step closer to justice. The police have not yet released Lori's cause of death because of the fact that she is a minor, and they have also not released what they believe led up to her death and why they think that her father killed her. But there have been a lot of people wondering if maybe he had gotten her pregnant and was scared the morning after pill wouldn't work. If that was the case, then when his 12-year-old daughter was found to be pregnant, he might have been scared that Lori would tell who the father was, or they would find out some other way. Or it could be something as simple as Lori said no more and that she was going to tell. These are just some of the theories that people have expressed that I've seen. Andrew never said why he did it and in fact denies having anything to do with Lori's murder. I know he's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, but I am entitled to have my opinion, and I think this fucker is 100% guilty. Andrew Wiley appeared in front of a judge on Saturday, April 13th of 2025, where his bond was absolutely denied, with state prosecutors' request to have the father barred from having contact with several of his and Lori's family members being granted. He was being held in the Leon County Jail where he had been appointed a public defender, and his next court date was scheduled for September 2nd. However, after completing my research for this episode, I found out that on June 19th, just a couple of weeks ago, Andrew Wiley died in the Leon County Jail. Here is what the press release said. On Thursday, June 19th, a 36-year-old male inmate experienced a medical emergency at the Leon County Detention Facility. He was taken to the medical unit and treated. LCSO detention staff began the life-saving measures and were assisted by emergency responders upon their arrival. The inmate, identified as 36-year-old Andrew Wiley, was pronounced deceased at approximately 5:36 p.m. Wiley had been in custody at the detention facility since April of 2025. His next of kin has been notified. All standard protocols for an in-custody death are being followed. The medical examiner's office will conduct an autopsy to determine cause and manner of death, which there is an update on it that says the medical examiner's preliminary report shows that Wiley died of natural causes caused by pulmonary embolism. When I seen this, I had mixed feelings. I felt like that was the end of Lori's chance for justice and that Andrew had gotten off easy. But then again, he didn't deserve to breathe the same air as everyone else for however many years he would live. Yes, he is innocent until proven guilty, like I said earlier, but I am allowed to have my opinion, and I believe that he 100% killed Lori. And if he didn't, he still was the shittiest father that he could be. Andrew will be remembered for just that, a shitty father, and a murderer. But Lori will always be remembered as the beautiful angel that she was. The community of Tallahassee is broken by the discovery of what happened to Lori. Everyone had been hoping she would be found safe. Lori's case has hopefully changed one thing going forward. Chief of Police Lawrence Revel says that they will no longer use the words runaway for missing people. He stated, quote, "So whether a person's a habitual runaway, a child, or this is the first time they've run away, we're going to treat it exactly the same," end quote. There's also a petition online to stop that from ever happening again, which I will share the link for on my Facebook page. Advocates and others online have rallied around Lori and have tried to do things to bring attention to her case and celebrate her life. Princess Sullivan, an advocate who brings attention to many cases online, has been extremely affected by the announcement that Lori's remains were found. She has many events planned in Lori's name so that she will never be forgotten. She also declared June 1st Lori's Day and asked everyone to light a pink candle or turn on a pink light, which was Lori's favorite color, in honor of her. Lori was felt by everyone in her life, especially those close to her. Her mother, Miranda, made a comment after Lori had gone missing. She said if Lori had been with her, she would have known where she was. Well, Miranda, why wasn't Lori with you? Why did you ship your daughter off to your mother and her father that you knew wouldn't take care of her? Hell, you even tried to ship her off to one of your old boyfriends at first, but he said no, so then you left her at her dad's, not knowing how he treated her or what he would do to her. Neither Miranda nor Andrew deserved this beautiful little girl. They didn't deserve her love, her presence, or to call her their daughter. I hope wherever Lori is now that she is at peace and happier than she ever was in this life she had on earth with these lesser than dirt human beings. With Andrew's sudden death, it seems like this will be the end for Lori's case. However, if there happens to be any more updates, I will for sure let you know. Check out the victim's voice on social media or on our new webpage at the-victims-voice.org for all updates and photos from this case. And until next week, stay safe and peace out.